Remember that horrible Sonic character that they tried force-feeding us a few months back? Paramount released a trailer for their upcoming Sonic movie, and the appearance of the beloved character was, how do I put this? Terrifying? It was freaking weird. The teeth, the eyes, the fur, just everything about the look was awful at best. It was so bad that it caused a legit uproar online. People were astonished by how bad the character looked, and they weren't shy about sharing their opinions on the subject. The overflow of negative feedback caused Paramount Pictures to head back to the drawing board and completely redesign the character. In the most recent trailer, Sonic looks way better. Definitely more along the lines of what the character is actually supposed to look like, and not some weird altered version. This time around, people were a lot happier. It was also the first major instance, and perhaps the only one that comes to mind, of a movie studio listening to their audience to such a massive degree. Rather than just put the movie out and tell fans to deal with it, they actually went back and reworked the animation to appease people. That, never happens. For once, they actually listened. Or did they? I mean, the story we've been told is that they released the first trailer, people didn't like it, so they went back and changed it, and then released a second trailer that people were much happier with. That's what we've been told. But what if that was part of the game plan all along? What if this was just all one big marketing scheme? I mean, do you really think people would be talking about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie as much as we have been over the past couple of months if there hadn't been some sort of scandal or juicy story to follow? If they just made the movie, made some regular commercials about it, and put it out the same way most studios do with most movies, I highly doubt there would be the same kind of buzz happening. It might all just be a genius strategy, but if that's the case, then how did they pull this off? Jimmy Kimmel, is that you? Seriously, I can't think of another instance where something like this has happened before in movie-making history. Aside from the precedents that it sets, giving that much value to what people on the internet think, the sheer cost to go back and reanimate an entire CGI movie, would have to be astronomical. Almost not worth doing, frankly. Instead, it would make a lot more sense if they simply paid to have one crappy trailer made that they knew they'd release months in advance, and have actually been working on the current version of Sonic since day one. They never actually made a whole movie featuring the gross Sonic. That was never an option. Now they've added this caveat that people should go support this movie because they're finally listening to fans and we have to show the studios that we're worth listening to. There's almost this moral obligation to support the movie when it gets released now because they want us to think that we made a difference. It was a big publicity stunt. It's honestly pretty genius. Even the sheer fact that we made this video and you're watching this is just evidence that it worked. We're all playing into their ploy. Of course, there's going to be a bunch of people saying that this is insane and that we should take off our tinfoil helmets and just believe what we're told. But there's just no explanation for why it was so easy to get Paramount to undergo massive changes with such a massive price tag attached to them. Movie studios don't just throw away money like that. They were apparently close to completing the original version when they decided to reimagine the character and switch things up. Do you have any idea the headache that reanimating an entire movie would be once almost finished? That's a crazy task, with a crazy amount of hours and a crazy cost to it. Yet Paramount was just like, oh, you don't like it? Okay, well, I guess we'll change it. Just like that? No, I don't think so. It all happened way too easily, if you ask me. Instead, their plan from the very beginning was to piss off the internet. Can I say piss off? Yeah. They released a horrible version of Sonic not only to get people talking about it, but the memes and ridicule and references immediately flew off the charts. The social engagement about the movie, albeit negative for the most part, went through the roof. Social media and Reddit and other group platforms lit up over this whole thing. So Paramount now is able to look like the good guys who listened to their fans and took everyone's opinion into consideration and made these changes for us. The best way to get someone on your side is to make them feel important. Then they laid low for a few months and then they came back with this, quote, redesigned version of Sonic. In fact, this is the version that they've had all along, they've just been hiding it. Now the trailers get about 10 to 20 times the attention they typically would if they just put out a standard movie trailer from day one. It's redemption marketing at its finest. They successfully switched the narrative about the movie release from I might like this, but I'm worried about this one thing, to because they made an effort to fix this one thing, I'm sure I'm gonna like this. In this case, the Sonic CGI took on most of the focus by people in the media, but if we're able to look past the odd character design, the trailer itself was pretty weak. The punchlines weren't funny at all, the plot had absolutely nothing to do with any sort of established Sonic source material, and honestly, the high point of the entire trailer was a big, "Look over here, we've got Jim Carrey." I mean, sure, Jimbo's cool and all, but it seemed like the movie was really leaning heavily on having a likable actor to sell a pretty subpar movie. Even if the first trailer came out with a decent-looking Sonic, I guarantee people would still have been pretty anxious about the movie being a heaping pile of baby diapers. I really doubt it would have gotten the overwhelming backlash that it did. More likely it would have just been ignored and faded into obscurity as another attempt at making something that people don't actually care about. Before we continue with this theory, I just wanted to remind you to subscribe to ScreenRant and make sure that you turn on those notifications. If you're on mobile, just go into your YouTube settings and turn on mobile notifications, and then you're all set. Okay, conspiracy hats back on, folks. So now that the CGI has been updated, or perhaps a better term would be fixed, regardless of whether or not that was actually the intended plan or not, the new marketing strategy is, we fixed it, so it's good now. Everyone is back on board because Sonic looks nicer. But, guys, that doesn't change the plot or the writing or the script. Absolutely none of those concerns have been addressed. Those glaring issues were completely overlooked by the masses in favor of, the blue guy looks wrong. They fixed the crappy CGI elephant in the room, but they didn't even mention the more concerning issues. I guess they're relying on people's assumptions that if they fix the Sonic, that means that they must listen, and if they listen, that means that they must understand what we like, and therefore, we'll probably like this movie that they made for us. It's a nice sentiment, but sadly that's not how things work. Let's take a moment to really examine that first trailer that ignited all of this. There's a couple interesting parts in it that hint that this theory might actually be true, that it was planned all along. For starters, they show very little of Sonic, especially when compared to the new updated trailer, which is chock full of Sonic. On top of that, the CGI in the original trailer is truly awful. To the untrained eye, it might have just seemed poorly designed, but it's actually bad CGI. In some shots, they don't even correct the lighting, and Sonic appears to be almost hovering off the ground. It's a bad rendering from a technical perspective. Later on, when he's sitting in the passenger seat of a car, it looks like a sticker that someone placed on the screen. There's absolutely zero realistic lighting or movement whatsoever. It's just a weird, hovering blue hedgehog creature. They probably just created that model solely for the purpose of those shots for that trailer. To reanimate the entire movie would be a huge expense, but to simply make a short trailer featuring a couple shots of a poorly made character wouldn't be too expensive at all. Compared to most movie marketing campaigns, it would probably be a lot less costly if we're being honest. Think about it, some 30-second TV commercials use fully realized and designed 3D characters. To mock up a crappy Sonic for a couple of scenes wouldn't be that tough to do. After all, the biggest pain in the butt when working with CGI is the 3D models. You need to make it look realistic, which means dealing with lighting and shadows and correct perspectives and reactions and facial emotions, and making it disappear partially when real objects pass in front of it. Most of the work is put towards making it seem like that character is actually there on screen. But in that first trailer, there's none of that. There's barely any scenes with Sonic and an actor in the same frame. Even when they are, there's enough distance where you could just easily cut him out without affecting the actor or any of the surrounding real objects. And any scene where an object does pass in front of him is also 100% CGI objects, like Eggman's drones, which would also be computer animated. They literally refrain from doing anything remotely tricky. So they made this movie with a regular-looking Sonic, then they created a second, crappier Sonic, and went back and cut him into all the scenes where it would be easy to do so. Then they sprinkled a bit of Jim Carrey on top and hoped that nobody would notice this is a sham trailer with a devious game plan behind it. It explains why it was such an odd trailer to begin with and why Paramount was so agreeable in going back and making these changes. Bad Sonic was a hoax all along. What do you think? Does this conspiracy theory make sense, or are you more of the trusting type? Let us know what you think in the comment section down below. Before you go, make sure that you hit that thumbs up button, and if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to ScreenRant to stay up to date on all of our latest releases. Until next time, bye!